In the quiet corners of a traditional dojo where the air smells of cedar and aged floorboards, a singular truth exists. Greatness is not born, it is carved out of the void through thousands of identical movements. We call this kata. It is often misunderstood as a rigid, lifeless dance of punches and kicks, but for those who walk this path, it is the heartbeat of mastery itself. Imagine a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble. They do not finish in a single strike. Instead, it is the relentless, rhythmic tapping that reveals the masterpiece hidden within. This is the art of repetition, a journey that begins with a single awkward step and leads toward a state of effortless grace. Today, we explore why the most repetitive acts in our lives are actually the keys to unlocking our highest human potential. The history of kata is a history of survival. Long before digital archives or printed manuals, the ancient masters needed a way to preserve their most lethal techniques. They couldn't rely on memory alone in the heat of battle, so they encoded their knowledge into physical patterns. These forms were more than just exercises. They were living libraries of combat philosophy. Each turn of the heel and extension of the palm was a lesson passed down through generations, ensuring that even in times of peace, the wisdom of the warrior remained sharp. By performing these sequences, the practitioner connects with a lineage of masters stretching back centuries, becoming a vessel for a tradition that refuses to be forgotten. It is a dialogue between the past and the present, conducted through the body. Modern science has finally caught up to what the ancient masters knew instinctively. Repetition changes the very architecture of the brain. Every time you repeat a specific movement, your nervous system wraps your neurons in a fatty substance called myelin. Think of myelin as high-speed insulation for your internal wiring. The more you practice a movement, the thicker this insulation becomes, allowing electrical signals to travel faster and more efficiently. This is the biological foundation of muscle memory. In the beginning, a technique requires conscious, clunky effort, but after the 1,000th repetition, the brain hands the controls over to the subconscious. You no longer think about the movement, you simply become the movement. Your body gains the ability to react at the speed of thought, bypassing the hesitation of the analytical mind. The early stages of any kata are often a period of deep frustration. Your limbs feel heavy, your balance is shaky, and the movements feel performative rather than powerful. This is the clunky phase, where the ego screams for variety and excitement. We are conditioned to seek novelty, but kata demands the opposite. It demands that we stay in the discomfort of the familiar. This period is a filter that separates the hobbyist from the seeker. To move through it, one must embrace the boredom. You are not just practicing a punch, you are practicing the patience required to perfect that punch. Every mistake is a piece of data, a small correction that slowly polishes the rough edges of your form. It is in these quiet, repetitive hours that the true foundation of excellence is poured. A common mistake in the pursuit of mastery is the rush towards speed. We want to be fast, but speed without precision is merely chaos. Kata teaches us to slow down to a crawl. When you perform a movement in slow motion, there is nowhere for your flaws to hide. You feel the slight wobble in your ankle, the tension in your shoulder, and the misalignment of your spine. By stripping away the momentum, you force your body to rely on structural integrity and core strength. This deliberate slowness is a form of deep honesty. It allows you to audit your own performance with surgical precision. Once the path is perfectly clear and the alignment is flawless, speed will come naturally as a byproduct of efficiency. You don't try to be fast, you simply remove everything that makes you slow. While kata is a physical act, its greatest battles are fought within the mind. It is a form of moving meditation. As the body enters the familiar flow of the sequence, the internal chatter of the mind begins to fade. The worries of the day, the anxieties about the future, and the nagging voice of the self all dissolve into the rhythm of the breath. In this state of mushin, or no mind, the practitioner is fully present in the moment. There is no performer and no performance. There is only the flow of energy. This mental clarity is the ultimate goal of the repetitive act. It prepares the warrior to face any external threat by first conquering the internal chaos. The kata becomes a mirror, reflecting the practitioner's mental state back to them with unwavering clarity. The philosophy of kata extends far beyond the walls of the dojo. It is a universal blueprint for excellence in any field. The concert pianist has their scales, the master chef has their knife skills, the elite programmer has their design patterns. These are all forms of kata, fundamental sequences that must be mastered until they are second nature. When we identify the kata of our chosen craft, we stop looking for shortcuts and start valuing the process. We realize that the path to the top is paved with mundane, repetitive actions performed with extraordinary focus. By treating our daily work as a formal practice, we transform our careers and hobbies into a spiritual journey. Mastery is not an event, it is a way of being that celebrates the beauty of the fundamental. There is a traditional Japanese concept called shu-ha-ri, which describes the stages of learning. Shu is the first stage. You follow the rules of the kata exactly, without question. You are a student of the form. Ha is the second stage. You begin to break the rules, experimenting and finding where the form fits your unique body and spirit. Finally, there is ri. You transcend the form altogether. You no longer do the kata, you are the kata. In this final stage, the movements become spontaneous and free. Paradoxically, you can only achieve this total freedom by first submitting to the rigid discipline of the repetition. You must learn the rules perfectly before you can earn the right to discard them. The form is the ladder you climb to reach the roof. Once you are there, you no longer need the ladder. To practice kata correctly, one must engage the imagination. You are not fighting thin air, you are facing an invisible opponent. This requires a high level of enbusen, or focus on the line of movement. Every block must be timed against an imaginary strike. Every counterattack must be aimed at a specific vulnerability. This mental visualization bridges the gap between a solo exercise and a real-world application. It develops a sense of zanshin, lingering awareness. Even after the movement ends, the spirit remains vigilant. By fighting these shadows every day, the practitioner builds a reservoir of calm confidence. They have already won 1,000 battles in their mind before they ever step into a real ring. The invisible opponent is the ultimate training partner, never tiring and always pushing you to be better. Every practitioner eventually hits the plateau. This is the point where progress seems to stall, and the thrill of learning something new has long since evaporated. The plateau is dangerous. It is where most people quit. They feel they have learned all there is to know because the physical sequence is memorized. But the master knows that the plateau is where the real work begins. This is the stage of refinement, where you look for the 1% improvements. You find a slightly better way to breathe, a more efficient way to shift your weight, or a deeper sense of internal tension. The plateau is not a dead end, it is a testing ground for your character. If you can continue to practice with intensity when there is no visible reward, you have truly understood the spirit of kata. Kata is a form of time travel. When a teacher corrects a student's elbow position in a specific kata, they are passing down a correction that might have been made 500 years ago. This chain of transmission is sacred. It ensures that the soul of the art survives the death of the artist. As you master a kata, you become a link in this chain. You carry the responsibility of keeping the flame alive and eventually passing it to the next generation. But you don't just pass on the movements, you pass on the discipline, the resilience, and the humility that the movements instilled in you. In this way, kata is much more than a method of self-defense. It is a method of self-perpetuation. The master lives on through the movements of the student. Ultimately, the lesson of kata is that mastery is not a destination you reach and then abandon. It is a recursive loop, a continuous cycle of returning to the basics with new eyes. No matter how high you climb, the fundamentals remain your foundation. The master is simply the student who never stopped practicing the first movement. As you go forth into your own life and your own crafts, remember that the smallest, most repetitive acts are often the most significant. Don't fear the repetition, embrace it. Let it polish your spirit, sharpen your mind, and steady your heart. Whether you are throwing a punch, writing a line of code, or playing a melody, do it as if it were the first time, and the 1,000th time, all at once. The path to greatness is right beneath your feet, one step and one repetition at a time.